And let me welcome everybody to our great session here on empowering migrant communities through effective fundraising. We are thrilled at Somos to welcome Dr. Carlos Parra, who's a tenured professor at La Sierra University down south, the same county I went to college. Yay, down in San Bernardino, Riverside counties. And our work in Somos is about teaching fundraising, but also teaching you best practices, teaching you the research behind it. So it's not just method and techniques, it's the holistic approach to think about how we empower our communities. I was very inspired by some of the things Dr. Parra has been writing about. He's an award-winning professor. He's a department chair. He's a published author, and is a real credit. Also, Pavel was a student too. Pavel was an A student too. I won't say he was a C student anymore. But he's here to talk to us about empowering our communities. So let me just say two seconds about this subject. I think internalized racism with Latinos is one of the most devastating, more than some racist yelling at you, calling you, anything negative. We won't use any of those terms in this room. More than being denied jobs or being looked past is our own people telling us we can't do things. We are poor, we are weak, we are divided, we are this, and we have to really push back against that. We have to see it for the paper tiger that it is and destroy it and shatter internalized racism. Okay, and believe that we are resourceful, powerful. Our immigrant communities are dying to succeed. They're literally, coming to this country. Some of them are dying to succeed, and they're coming here ready to work hard and be part of this country. And so, how do we show them their own power? How, as Latinos who've been here for a while, we give them that arm and say, "Vámonos, let's go, help them up." I don't care what country they come from. Latino is Latino, yeah, including our Brazilian sisters and brothers. And so how do we do that as a people and create a big abrazo and show them that we're part of a community? Okay. So Dr. Parra is going to give us sort of the helicopter view, and then he's going to talk about some of his work, some of the best practices he's seen, and then we're going to have a good discussion. And all of you, Emilia, Diana, Blanca, expect a good discussion. Raul, okay? I'm going to ask you guys to step up and let's have a lively discussion. We've got his time. Let's don't waste it. Please, Dr. Parra, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Armando, for the invitation. And I know Pavel, you mentioned Pavel was my student years ago. He was a good student, though, so I had to say that. But as far as what I'm doing, I appreciate the invitation to speak to this audience and to present some of what I have seen. What we can bring it to discussion now. What you mentioned about internalizing racism, that deserves another webinar, because there is a whole lot of things that we need to dig into in terms of how we, as it all depends how you perceive yourself, obviously, and much of what we hear, experience, and do affects that perception as well. So let me just say that sometimes we internalize as a process of having been colonialized for so long. So that's part of it, So I just leave it there because, again, that's part of another webinar. Here we are to talk about fundraising, obviously, and so I will present some cases that are successful, some that have the potential to be, and how we perceive fundraising within the community. So fundraising plays a pivotal role in supporting migrant communities, providing essential resources and services that can significantly impact their well-being, obviously, and integration into the society. It serves as a lifeline offering financial support and for legal aid and healthcare and education, housing initiatives that directly address the immediate and long-term needs of the migrants. So I think that we can create programs that empower migrant individuals and families, fostering an environment of support, respect, and of course opportunities. But there are problems, there are challenges. So can I share some of the? Can I have? I think I can share the screen so I can go on with my PowerPoint here. I believe you can see it, right?
Yes, I can.
All right, so we are here as far as talking about the introduction with the fundraising, and also I wanted to mention that there are some challenges and some opportunities for migrants. The migrant communities face a multitude of unique challenges. We know that many of us are. That can be daunting and multifaceted. Challenges like language barriers and also cultural differences. This is very important as well. That can hinder the access to vital services and integration into new communities. Economic hardships are also prevalent, and with many migrants and seeking employment opportunities under challenging conditions. Another thing that we can think of as challenges would be the social isolation and discrimination that you mentioned earlier, that compounds the vulnerability of the migrants and complicates the adaptation to new environments. So I would like to just talk about some of the how we understand these issue of nonprofits, NPOs, and how we can fundraise effectively. So we'll talk about the understanding of migrant communities, the legal and ethical considerations. We'll talk about the fundraising strategies, and we'll give examples, excuse me, from organizations that are doing it well, and in a way, kind of hinting at what they're doing. So some of those who are in the audience, I know some of you are very, very skilled in what you're doing, but I think providing information at the base is important, so we don't forget what we need to do at the ground level too. So marketing and communications, measuring and reporting, that's important. And also we'll talk about some of the cases that are successful, as I mentioned earlier, and the potential to for some of these NPOs to be also very successful. So when we talk about the understanding migrant communities, we have to think also about the demographics and the needs of that demographic. And we also have to think about the cultural sensitivity, how we do these. And so I can think of the Migration Policy Institute, MPI, they provide in-depth data on the demographics of migrants in the US, highlighting that many lack access to healthcare and legal services. By nonprofits like let's think of the National Immigration Law Center. The focus on providing legal assistance to migrants. Also fundraising efforts can be directed toward legal aid clinics and awareness and workshops. When we think of the cultural sensitivity, we have examples like Unidos US. That is an organization that we know about that works on culturally sensitive community engagement, offering resources and support in Spanish. They, initiatives like cultural festivals and events that celebrate the heritage of migrant communities can also serve as fundraising opportunities, promoting inclusivity and understanding. We can also talk about the legal and ethical considerations. And within this area, we think of compliance with the laws, ethical fundraising. There is we can think of the International Rescue Committee, the IRC, that operates in compliance with U.S. fundraising laws, providing a model for legal adherence by hosting workshops or webinars with legal experts to educate small nonprofits and, of course, community groups about fundraising and regulations and compliance. Ethical fundraising. An example of this Charity Navigator, for example, that offers a rating system for nonprofits, ensuring they meet ethical standards in fundraising by implementing a transparent donation process where donors are informed about how their funds are used, enhancing the trust and, of course, the accountability. We look into the fundraising strategies, thinking of community engagement and diverse fundraising channels. We can think of an organization like Raíces, for example. I don't know if you've heard that one. Of course, I'm sure you have. The Refugees and Immigration Center for Education and Legal Services. It's understood as Raíces that engages in communities directly to understand and address, of course, the needs of each community by organizing community forums and discussions to involve, forums like this one to discuss, how the immigrants can get involved in decision-making process. That's important. I guess sometimes we as immigrants think that others can have to do everything for us and we can't do it. But yes, we can, as Armando mentioned earlier. And so talking about the diverse fundraising channels, I can think of the GoFundMe as one of the organizations that campaigns for specific migrant causes, like supporting families separated at the border. And they have raised significant funds through that. They, of course, by using a mix of online platforms, local events, direct outreach to diversify fundraising efforts, and of course reach broader audiences. Talking about the marketing and communication, we definitely need to think of languages, multiplicity, the multilingual and access for communication, and of course the effective messaging. So how are we doing that as an NPO? Are we communicating effectively? How do we know that? And so an example of this is Amnesty International. They use very compelling storytelling in its campaigns, highlighting individual stories to bring attention to broader migrant issues. They create, marketing materials that include real stories from migrants, showcasing the direct impact of donations, so that they tap into that particular area. Multilingual and communication and access is tremendously important, and you can take a look at the website of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. They offer resources in multiple languages, and so we can do that. Developing fundraising materials and websites that are accessible in different languages, common, and of course among the migrant communities. We also have an element that is we need to measure how effective we are in what we do, and of course how we report that with transparency. And so when we talk about these, and there is in the evaluation techniques, I can think of the Doctors Without Borders. Doctors Without Borders regularly evaluates its projects and shares the outcomes with donors and showing how the funds are used. So by establishing a system of tracking and reporting that the outcomes of funded projects, such as the number of migrants assisted or services provided, accessible. All this information is accessible to the donors. Again, transparency. That's important. And the ACLU provide annual reports that are transparent, overviews of their activities, and of course, fund usage. By publishing annual reports and updates for donors, detailing fundraising activities and expenditures, and how the contributions have impacted those who they are serving. So thinking of all these, then I looked into some of the cases that are successful, and then of course those that organizations that have the potential to be successful in these areas with migration and as nonprofits, and of course fundraising. And of course, we'll talk about the best practices briefly towards the end. So one organization that I think I saw that is very successful is the American Civil Liberties Union, of course, the ACLU. And this organization has been highly, effective in using legal advocacy and litigations to defend the rights of immigrants. They leverage a combination of grassroots fundraising, major donor contributions, and online campaigns. Their transparent reporting and consistent communication on progress and the victories in court cases have helped in sustaining donor interest and support. We also have another successful story in that International Rescue Committee. This organization is proficient in using storytelling and impactful imagery in its fundraising campaigns. They also engage in emergency fundraising drives in response to immediate crisis, which has been successful due to their strong online presence and reputation for quick, effective action. So that's an organization also to look at in terms of the success. I mentioned Doctors Without Borders. This is an organization that has a strong brand and reputation for delivering urgent medical care in crisis situations, and is central. Their response is central to their fundraising process, and of course the success. They use a mix of direct mail campaigns and online donations, and high visibility events to raise funds, emphasizing the direct impact of donor contributions. So we need to look into that as well. The other organization that I mentioned earlier, Raíces, has gained a widespread recognition and support through viral social media campaigns, especially during the family separation crisis at the U.S. border. And of course, their ability to rapidly respond to emerging issues and mobilize support online has been a key aspect of their fundraising effectiveness. So we need to look into that organization as well, how quick they are in the response. I can't leave out Unidos USA because this organization obviously is very successful, and Unidos US has partnered with major corporations and foundations and leveraging this relationship for fundraising. They also engage in community centric events and cultural celebrations, which not only raise funds, but also enhance community engagement and visibility. So it achieves many objectives at the same time. There's another organization called the Church World Services, Church World Service, the CWS. This organization utilizes a network of churches and community groups for grassroots fundraising, effectively mobilizing local communities and support of migrants. Their inclusive approach, engaging diverse religious and community groups, has broadened their donor base because they reach out to many religious organizations. So that's part of that. There's one more before we get into the potential MPOs. The Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights. This organization, centers, is focused on children in the immigration system. And has, obtained a specific donor interest. They use storytelling and case studies in their communications, illustrating obviously the impact of their work, and this resonates well with individual donors and foundations. So we need to think of this organization. Notice that I mentioned some of these organizations, and some of them are focused on storytelling and showing, illustrating how and who is getting benefited from the donations that donors provide. Now let's think of the MPOs with potential for success. We can think of kids in need of defense, kind. They can leverage the unique emotional appeal of supporting children in need, utilizing storytelling and partnership with law firms and universities for pro bono services, enhancing their fundraising appeal. There's also another organization called Border Angels you may be familiar with. This organization can, of course, by organizing awareness campaigns about the hardship faced at the border, and water drop campaigns in the desert, in the border between the U.S. and Mexico. They can attract donations aimed at humanitarian aid and advocacy. There is also the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project. This organization, by fundraising, can also be bolstered through campaigns that highlight the impact of legal assistance and on individual immigration cases, appealing to, again, donors concerned with legal justice. That's part of that. We also have the organization called ASAP, the Asylum Seeker Advocacy Project. They can utilize digital platforms for rapid response fundraising, especially in times of policy changes or high-profile asylum cases, engaging, of course, a broad online audience. So they're effective with that. They have the potential to be very successful. The National Network for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. That's another organization that we has the potential by conducting educational workshops and advocacy training sessions. They can raise funds from donors who are interested in systemic change, obviously, and policy advocacy. We have also the ILRC, which is a immigrant legal resource center. This organization they can generate funds through the sale of educational materials, training workshops, and webinars. appealing to professionals in the field and those interested in legal education. So they also have a role in these. We also have a couple of the other ones, the Tahiti Justice Center, that I noticed they can also engage donors through compelling storytelling. And we also have the American Friends Service Committee, the AFSC. They have a long history, and establishing reputation, can be a strong point, in fundraising campaigns, especially with when highlighting their comprehensive approach to migrant support, from legal to aid to social integration. There's one more, and that's the Freedom for Immigrants. These organization, fundraising, can be driven by campaigns that expose conditions in detention centers and the stories of those affected, aiming to attract donors, passionate about human rights and justice reform. So those are organizations that have the potential also to draw some interest in the fundraising. Now, when we talk about the best practices, thinking of initiatives to empower MPOs in supporting migrant communities, we can think of various areas that MPOs can work with, training workshops, resource sharing platforms, community partnership development, advocacy and policy engagement, and funding and grant assistance. Yes.
Let me raise one thing I didn't mention earlier, and I should have. I'm sorry, Dr. Parra. Somos al Poder right now, we're about to launch in early July a national professional learning community for immigration. Somos is our members Chirla,
sí,
and also Alianzas Americas.
Yes.
We're going to host. Basically, it's all of these organizations coming together, talking about what's actually working in immigration fundraising, combined with Somos training. People become members or not, but it'll be an open 5 times a year, hour and a half forum of all of us coming around the same virtual table and talking about this. It's Latino focused, and so we're going to try to I'm going to try to get it funded myself, so we can add benefits to it, like prospect research, to have it staffed. But even if I can't get it funded, we're going to have a big national learning community, because there's a lot of issues being raised here. But I've got questions for Dr. Potter once he's done.
Okay, thank you. No, that's wonderful. The project that you have, of course, bringing organizations into a hub, right? That's important. Now, as I mentioned these, I also wanted to share there are initiatives to empower migrant communities through these MPOs, and these initiatives, are developing skill and education and legal assistance and advocacy, health and well-being services, community centers, how they what's the role of these community centers in our community, in our at the grassroots level, and of course the entrepreneurship and employment support. Now, I'm not going to spend time fleshing out each one of them, but we could talk about that a little bit after. I do want to suggest that some organizations, and these organizations came up as possibilities that have the potential to establish a migration empowerment network through a hub like Somos el Poder. But I don't know if that is something that, you see some organizations there that are not necessarily or directly working with Latinos, but they do work with migrants and refugees. So that's part of of the suggestion there. Why to put organizations of this nature into a hub, or the possibility of having many of these MPOs into one hub like Somos el Poder? Well, there are advantages of coming together. The advantages are, like collaboration and networking. That is important. Advantages like increased visibility as a hub. That's part of what Armando was mentioning earlier, is the visibility. That how what's the impact that we as a hub of Latinos may have within a larger scope. The access to resources and training, that's also part of the advantage of becoming a part of a hub like Somos el Poder. In advocacy and influence, that's important as well, and definitely cost efficiency. Because through participation and share platforms, can reduce the cost associated with marketing, events, and outreach activities. So this represents really a strategic decision for nonprofit organizations to leverage collective strength, and so that's part of what my suggestion is at the end of this presentation. So I'll just leave it there for now, and I open the floor. I know that it's been an activity in the chat. I see many conversation taking place. So I'll just stop the sharing and open the floor, I suppose, to
Sure.
yeah.
I really want to ask people to step up and ask questions. I have a question right off the bat to get the party going here. You talked about important messaging, and so for me, I often ask myself, because there's so much disinformation about immigrants. It's like there's a whole TV channel telling you that Colombians are coming to kill your family. And they're all either prostitutes, murderers, or drug mules.
Yeah.
Do we counter that in our messaging? Do we ignore it? Do we take it on? How do we deal with that? Because in lots of causes we work on, sick kids, there's no disinformation. People know, okay, kids get sick, they get cancer. Or the climate change. Well, there's misinformation on climate change, but most people agree it's real. This is one of the few causes where there's a voice telling you this is all, the opposite. So what have you seen in terms of messaging that's effective? Do we ignore the lies? Do we take on the lies? Do this give them strength if we take them on? That sort of thing.
Well, just to kind of offer a brief answer to that. I don't think the counterpointing or confronting. You mentioned misinformation, but we also have disinformation. Confronting these issues head on is actually wise. I think by providing another avenue with information that is legitimate and validated is more effective. Now, how to get these legitimate information into the whole society? I think the job of like Somos el Poder, providing webinars, providing workshops, providing opportunities, in fact, reaching out into local communities that may not know anything about Somos el Poder, just going directly into the grassroots level, the grassroots, schools, PTAs, and all that, to inform the community, the parents, because everybody's being bombarded with, through social media, with all kinds of information. And so I think we can show how to, I see a question there, and how face misinformation about Latinos communities and attacking the community. I think we can show them the through data how the impact of our community. I mean, our community within the big scope, instead of feeding more and more into or being driven by this misinformation that we have in social media. So I think we can do that. Yeah.
Blanca has raised her hand. Blanca, why don't you unmute? Let me add back up Dr. Parra saying there's an organization that are colleagues of ours, early collaborators, the Latino Donor Collaborative. Take a look at their data, because they have data that shows Latinos and immigrants are economically wildly beneficial. So the whole idea that we're going to come here and take is the facts, clean away the lies.
Right.
Blanca, please.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I am a new member of Somos. I think I signed up 3 weeks ago, but I'm taking every bit of, everything that I can absorb, I'm taking. But talking to that point about how do we change the narrative, I think that's an underlying motivation for me, because what I'm trying to do here in my organization is establish a avenue where I can help empower the Hispanic community and just show our community, I guess, that we are powerful. Yeah. So your presentation, Dr. Parra, about like the language barriers and the differences and economic hardship. So that all is like the foundation of what I'm trying to create. And I've had a lot of great positive feedback from the people that I've been able to connect with here locally. And thanks to Armando, he's connected me with some great professional Latinos in the nonprofit space, because we're very few. Yeah. I am the only Latina Hispanic in my department, and it was very eye-opening when after my high came down about like, yes, I got the title, and then it's like, oh, okay, like this is where I'm at, so I just appreciate everything that I'm hearing and learning, and I'm just soaking it up. So thank you.
Blanca.
Excellent. Yeah.
I've got a short question, Doctor, and a long question. Sarah is asking about where the data comes from about economics and immigrants.
But I think she was referring to the organization that you just mentioned.
Oh, LDC. They do their own research. That's where it comes from.
Awesome. Thank you.
So they have university researchers they contract with. USC, Loyola, there's UCLA, there's a couple of others. And then can you read Isha's question, Carlos, or I can read it to you?
I don't know which question.
Isha Hernandez is asking, Saludos, Armando y Carlos. Could you speak to the challenges faced in the funding different types of support for immigrants and refugees? Funding providing basic human services, food, clothes, shelter, cannot be scaled as much as legal support, for instance.
It's well, Armando, you have a lot of experience with that area.
Sure. I could take it if you want.
Go for it.
So some of the challenges, and this is a kind of a question to Dr. Parra I'm putting on the burner here, which is for me, there's a lot of funding and foundations that our organizations do not pursue. Okay, we often are, even the big immigration organizations Dr. Parra went over, go to regional funders. They don't go to national big funders for foundations. And then here's the big part. They don't go to corporations. Yes, going to corporations is dicey, okay? Because some of them are afraid of politically, some of their customers don't like immigrants.
Yeah.
So However, there are immigrant-founded businesses everywhere, okay, where the CEO, the jefa in charge, you can't talk immigrants against them because she is one, okay? So there's that. So we need to do research to find. I did a little work on this when I was in Catholic Charities. I found companies founded by immigrants, powerful companies, where when you talk to the person in charge of giving, they're like, oh yeah, my boss came from Venezuela. Well, I think you should like this. Secondly, is individuals. Where are we? There's very few organizations. I can think of one right now that's a Somos member, that's the immigration organization going, where are the wealthy people who care about immigration, who were immigrants, who will give to this? And but to going to your question, Isa, this is where you can get a broader range of services funded. The harder things to fund is going to come from individuals. Foundations and companies will be a little more scared, a little more narrow in how they fund. So I would love more discussion about this. We've got more questions popping up.
Yeah, well, just one thing there that I mentioned, I see some questions in the chat that are going into different directions, like, empowering and storytelling and so on. But just to add a little to what you just said, tapping into the individual donors requires a relationship. We otherwise it's very difficult to get as you know, Armando, that if you don't have a relationship with a specific donor for a number of, I don't know, sometimes years, you don't get the amount of money that they're promised or they're promising they want to do. So I think yes, it is important. It is important to tap into those organizations that are have federal funding and all that. But the individual donors, I'm with you. However, we cannot skip the idea or the need to have these formed relationships, which is the base for donation. It seems to me.
Yeah.
Now go ahead.
Ruben mentions talking about having the immigrants support each other through giving, which is something I've supported, I've done, and I'm seeing done by other Somos members. Little $5 a month, $10 a month, automatically taken out bank accounts, done on cell phones, $2. Pero mucho, a lot of people doing that at once. You can raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. You wouldn't think from what most of philanthropy would look past it. Oh, those are victims. Those are poor people. They can't help themselves.
Right. Well, one thing in terms of now what you just mentioned, and also there's a question on the chat, in terms of empowering, it says, how do we empower our migrant communities? Of course, I provided some avenues in the presentation. However, I don't want to miss to mention that many of those immigrants that we see in the local communities are already entrepreneurs. They come from locations and other places where they also function, and they are already in the field of raising money. I have found when I interview individuals for my own research and empowering communities with refugees and migrants, that many of them are already professionals. We can tap into those professionals already and help the rest of the community with the knowledge and their experience. Not all. In other words, I don't want us to think, obviously, that all migrants are powerless. And no, I mean, we have tremendous ideas. I have found in these interviews, of course, it's qualitative research, but in my interviews with them, many of them have a load of information and experience that the rest of the community can bank on. So that's part of that. Yeah.
Let me Vanessa has a good question for you, Dr. Parra, which is in regards to storytelling. Can you talk a little bit about the fine line between sharing our stories sharing our stories, but avoiding tokenism.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I read that. Well, I think in for the objective, which is fundraising, as I mentioned, some of these organizations are doing it already. Yes, there's a fine line. However, is necessary to present the stories is a must if we want to for one encourage the donors to provide funding, and also not just to provide or to give, but also to confirm that to them that their funds or their monies that they are providing are doing good. The good that they expect, and so the storytelling is important. Sometimes the visual stories are more powerful, especially with social media. Narrations are important, but it has space as well. So I think the visual stories are compelling, and we see them all the time in social media. Brief, and it tells a story for those who are interested in supporting the community. So that's what I have to say.
well, wonderful. So Francisco is asking, we heard from the foundations that they're entering a scarcity time for funding. Can you amplify a little bit more about this?
Well, I don't know what you've heard, Armando, about that.
Yeah.
In the, as far as the time that we are entering, and they're holding the funds that not want to share.
I think there some regional foundations are overloaded in terms of requests for immigrant support. I think that's what maybe New York and Chicago, Dr. Parra, because of what's going on.
Yeah.
So I recommend a couple of things, which is always prospect. When we think the pie is this big, it's actually this big. So find another way. It sounds simplistic and stupid even, but look at other, especially individuals, which overwhelmingly Latino and immigration nonprofits do not explore individual giving, especially individual major giving. The second thing is religious institutions. Third thing is national foundations that are supporting this, but only very sophisticated organizations know about them. So there's two other organizations we haven't brought up that are powerful fundraising machines in immigration. One is Chirla, that's a member of ours. So we do have a webinar done by Angelica Salas, the ED, which you can order, where she took in 15 years, she took Chirla from $900,000 a year raising money to 20 million. So she shatters all the BS that Latinos don't give. You can't raise money for immigration. No one likes this issue. Oh, like 20 million, that talks. Everything else walks. The other one is United We Dream. Last I knew, they were raising $11 million a year. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know, Dr. Parra, if you had anything to do with either of these organizations. Chirla, I know well.
With Chirla, I am more involved. Yeah. So.
Chela, no, Blanca. No, Chela, that's a cold beer. Come on, no. Chirla. It's funny. All right.
There's hands up, I guess.
Yeah, let's take Pavel right now.
Dr. Parra, I'm your student, so I kind of know your mentality. My question is, after we're all successful in supporting the migrant community, what is the work that needs to be done later? Is it around bolstering their identity as new citizens, as new people, as a part of this community? What needs to happen afterwards, after their most immediate needs are met and they have a sense of advocacy? What do you see as the next step so they really integrate in society?
Thank you, Pavel, for the question. The first thing that I can think of is empowerment. Is after basic needs are met, empowerment is the next step. You know, think of the pyramid. You know, the needs are already met. Now development of communities, empowerment according to their capacity, the capacity and their abilities in each community, whether it's urban or rural, is necessary. I mean, each community wants, and as an individual, an immigrant, I'm an immigrant myself, we wanted to make it in this country and make it in means various things for various communities and various individuals. They tap into this so-called American dream, but that's just an idea. Each one of us has a perception of what that is, and we need to. I think that's the next step is what to do now that all the basic needs are met. Now what? We want to raise our families. We want education. Some people want to have more funding for projects and so on, or even as I mentioned earlier, they want funding for the projects that they already had in mind before they arrived to this country. And so developing these ideas of entrepreneurship, the space of entrepreneurship. So that's probably what I would say to that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think Blanca has a question.
Blanca?
No, I didn't raise my hand.
Okay. We have an anonymous attendee, which is asking, do these organizations have a 501c4 arm as part of their advocacy or fundraising? Some do. I do know that. I don't know about the ones you listed. I'm trying to think of them, but I know Chirla does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, Alianzas Americas, also another member of Somos, is they have very interesting fundraising. They do have some individual. They have a good team of about 5-6 people, I think. If someone from Alianzas is here, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Seems to me, Armando, that of course the push is for individual fundraising more than at least in our communities. It seems from what you're saying. So, is that what you suggest to reach out? Because there is a different approach when we do the individual fundraising.
Yeah,
there's a different approach. It requires more involvement. It requires more relationship. It requires more time. So I don't know, in reference to support for immigrants, because I know, as you mentioned earlier, many organizations will not. They're not readily open to provide once they know that is for more refugees or more immigrants, because they have pay attention to the rhetoric, obviously. And so that's where the information that your organization comes is crucial, really vital. Is yeah.
Let me ask you a question from your research, from talking to all these leaders and immigrants. Do they feel a sense of being part of a group of people, of immigrants together? Or do they feel only individually? It's just about them. Do they feel collectiveness? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. I don't know.
Because as a fundraiser, if I'm asking Carlos, who did okay and was an immigrant 10 years ago, to help this new immigrant from Venezuela, who you don't know this guy and his family, but do you feel a kinship? And I know Colombia and Venezuela have their things, okay?
Oh yeah.
Let's pick another country, okay? Honduras.
Yeah, we may want to. No, the thing is, we do have to attend to our own differences. I mentioned at the beginning the cultural sensitivity. We that's part of it. We need to pay attention to who we are asking in reference to how we feel about our differences. Just because we call ourselves, or we are under the umbrella of Latinos or Hispanics, whatever it is that you want to choose, that doesn't mean that we move in one accord. We know that we have our own differences, and that, by the way, that categorization is external to us. That's not that's to us, meaning all these immigrants coming from all these countries in the Americas. So I cannot assume that someone from Argentina is in accord with someone from Mexico, for example. I cannot assume that, because there are so many cultural differences and political experiences that we need to put on the table, and we need to be sensible about those differences as well. So that's all I'm saying from my perspective as far as an educator, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious, but it's also something I think in fundraising, I've seen people try a little bit of individual asking, and then you run into an immigrant who's like, I don't care about those people. Those aren't my people, or they can make it on their own like we did. And they
Yeah.
give up
Yeah,
and they go, oh, que lástima, this is not going to work.
yeah.
When if you look a little harder and you fine tune your imaging, you can find people who do care, who do see affinity, who do see sisterhood and brotherhood with these people who are coming, and
Some education in that respect is also important as far as the organization, Somos el Poder, sometimes these reticence to give to certain groups, and not, some do but some don't, is based on, of course, our own understanding or misunderstanding of what that community is. And so education is part of that. So yeah, it's a labor of love, Armando. It's a labor of love.
it's a labor of love. And people always, I'll tell you a quick 2-second story. When the little Donnie got elected, people came up to me, strangers, white women came up to me and said, you're going home now, we're going to deport you people. Strangers. I'm 6'2", right? They didn't know I could have been a bad guy and a violent guy. And my family came here, in 1910, but we built. So the first time I was shocked. The second time I told them, I am home, you go home to Ireland. It's like, it's mi, this mi tierra. Okay.
Yeah.
One more question from Cosme here. And that's, I think, all we're going to have. How do political events such as upcoming election and recent developments in Ecuador influence donation patterns with migrant communities?
Wow. That's outside of our scope here, of course.
I have an opinion, but go ahead.
But yeah, that's what I would have too. But again,
there's no data.
It's so and it's volatile. It's not how can I say this? An assurance that what we're saying is what is happening, because it's so fluid still. But again, cultural sensitivity in general. How are we going to include these issues that are happening down the Americas into our fundraising? And so I don't have much to say in that respect at this point, simply because the needle moves very fast and quickly, day after day. So I don't know. I have, for example, you mentioned Venezuela a few times in the presentation. There is animosity about Venezuelans in the area, and depending where you are in the country, you have more rhetoric against them than if you are in the border, southern border, or if you are up in Massachusetts, Venezuelans, how is it that this is going to work with so many Venezuelans in the area? When I went to do my research in Southern California, looking for Central Americans, obviously coming through from the Northern Triangle, I found more Venezuelans, Ecuadorians, and Haitians in the mix than anything else, more than Central Americans. So why? Because that's what is happening right now. That's what is happening right now. So things change, and our perspective also changes, because we may be open to support some groups, as it was mentioned earlier, but we may not be as open to support some other groups. So that's all. Yeah.
let me close this out by saying I think right-wing hate of immigrants helps fundraising because it raises the issue, and our opponents are irrational and full of hate, and it's a good opponent to be against. The more quiet anti-immigrant, when they don't put it out there real loud, that's much harder. Because they can put on it, oh, we like immigrants, but let's screw them over. Let's stop them. But when they're out there saying stupid things, when it's good fundraising for us. Let me thank Dr. Parra, and thank you all for coming. You've been very generous with your time, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation and for the audience. I mean, I'm sure that we can continue the conversation some other time.
We will have you. We're forming Juntos Podemos, the Immigration National Professional Learning Community. Look for emails in May to all of you members.
Perfect.
Join this, and Dr. Parra will probably be one of the first people we have because of his knowledge, and we appreciate you
Thank
for all
you.
your work you do. Keep it up.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Profe.
Bye. Thank you.